I've covered many in the past, and today I'm simply going to reiterate Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann's response and her testimony once she attended the World Health Organization meeting. Take a look at this, my friends. There it is. What does the headline say? Yes, the pandemic has eroded democracy, eroded our human rights. Take a listen.
Congresswoman Bachmann, tell us a little bit about what you experienced when you went to Geneva, Switzerland, and were a part of at least the audience listening to all the things going on at the World Health Organization.
Well, friends, here comes clip number 2. All right, listen.
That there was an absolute bombshell press letter that went out that said the European Union has already developed a global digital passport that would regulate the ability of people to take transportation, and it would also regulate our health issues. That global digital passport, which essentially would be a QR code on your mobile phone, an individual would have to be in compliance with the mandates of the World Health Organization in order to be able to travel, in order to be able to move about. So,
do you see it, my friends? They are reading the signs of the times, rulers and statesmen, stateswomen, and now she mentioned that it is actually going to be enslaving every single person in the world, because each individual will be brought under the World Health Organization, which will ultimately trump and overthrow your national sovereignty and individual civil and religious liberties.
This has such profound consequences for every person on earth, because the plan envisioned is that every person on earth would come under the dominion and control of the World Health Organization.
And the next clip, she went on to actually state it's going to be merged with the central bank digital currency. It's slavery.
And Monday it was announced that the WHO will take over the European digital passport. And they also stated this will be the first building block, presumably merging digital currency, digital health records. Our entire life will eventually be merged onto this digital QR code. And they said the effective date is June of 2023. In other words, right now. This global digital passport is effective now.
Yeah.
Now. And the majority of God's people are sleeping, but the world can see what is coming. Here is Tedros.
WHO is proud today to launch the Global Digital Health Certification Network.
Clip 2.
And I'm delighted that as of July 1st, the World Health Organization will take up the framework of the EU Digital COVID Certificate.
Do you see it, my friends? And now, all of a sudden, here comes the pivoting point. Listen to this, friends.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think our lives, it won't be a year from now. Our lives will be, yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think our lives, it won't be a year from now. Our lives will be completely upended, absent a miracle or an intervening hand from the Lord. We're looking at less than a year at this point of having this full digital passport enforced and actually out in play for everyone in the world.
With that in mind, notice what the UN is now rolling out. It's called iVerify. It's one other step in the grand scheme of tyranny, which is, my friends, to suppress Bible truth from being proclaimed. Yes, all in the name of misinformation and disinformation. iVerify bans truth. Here it is, my friends. All right, misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech threaten peace and security, disproportionately affecting those who are already vulnerable. iVerify is our automated fact-checking tool. that can help identify false information and prevent its spread. So-called iVerify, right there, my friends. The UN Development Program tool to fight misinformation scales globally. You see what's happening here now, friends? Scales globally as a digital public good. That sounds to me like common good, a Roman Catholic social teaching. Antonio Gutierrez. Do you see it, my friends? All in the name to so-called suppress hate speech. We're here, friends. The UNDP said that misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech threatens peace and security. When they shall say peace and security, when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction is coming. Notice here, friends, it described the iVerify program as an automated fact-checking tool. All right, skip on down. Why? It says, red words, they are responding to threats to information integrity. The UN program has already received some pushback, with Canadian professor Jordan Peterson describing the automated fact-checking system as an Orwellian nightmare unfolding in real time, courtesy of the globalist centralizer. Here, my friends, here is a short clip of iVerify. And notice, it doesn't only address election time, election or fraud, voting, and so on, misinformation on social media, disinformation, right? Suppressing one candidate, exalting another. It's not just for the election cycle. It is broad. And while it's broad, it's very ambiguous. Do you know why? It's intentional. So that they can use it for whatever they deem as hate speech, as misinformation, based on the scriptures. Jesus was looked upon as a hate preacher. John the Baptist, likewise. Elijah, Jeremiah. It's coming for God's people in the last days. You won't be able to preach against sodomy. You won't be able to preach against the apostate church and state union that will birth the mark of the beast and persecute God's commandment-keeping people. And iVerify has now gone global. Common good has now gone global. Wake up, iVerify.
But iVerify doesn't just identify false news stories. It also monitors social media for toxic content.
What now? It monitors what? For what? Listen again. It's coming. So that means we must use then the platforms that we have now before it is too late.
But iVerify doesn't just identify false news stories. It also monitors social media for toxic content. Horrible messages like these. What's more, iVerify can monitor everything posted on social media in a day for toxic content. When it finds something, that also goes to the verifiers. Protected free speech and verifiable information are important to an election. So is civil discussion. iVerify is working to ensure these rights are protected. To learn more, go to digital.undp.org.
We don't believe you. The only free speech, in quotes, that will be allowed to make it on the airwaves and remain are those statements that are in harmony with their diabolical agenda. Take a look at this, my friends. Notice the UN vaguely defines hate speech as any kind of communication in speech, in writing, or behavior that attacks a person or a group on the basis of religion. You see what's coming? You cannot preach against another person's religion. Well, my friends, something is wrong with that. Because Jesus said in John 10 and verse 16, Jesus said in Revelation chapter 18, verse 2 through verse 4, we have to identify false religions. We have to identify apostate denominations under the umbrella of Christianity and call people from those apostate denominations under Christianity. That is going to be labeled as hate speech. You see what's coming? You're under siege. All right. It will make more sense what we're covering here. Notice, friends, you can't preach against people's religion. What did the Pope of Rome say? Freedom of speech has limits. And if you preach against my mother, you will receive persecutions punch. Popes, persecutions, freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of worship. Are we together, my friends? Here comes the Jesuit educated and trained UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres in the same context of preparing for Agenda 2030, UN Agenda 2030, rolling out global central bank digital currency, rolling out a global digital health passport, a global digital ID. On the heels of all of that, he says it's time to suppress speech and post on social media, on media across the board. Here is the Jesuit educated. Speak for yourself.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate.
What platforms? All right, listen again.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action.
You see that, friends? There it is now. And here comes the thinking men and thinking women of all classes who are actually looking at the current events, and they are deducing, concluding this fact: America, the world, is on the verge of a stupendous crisis. She said the UN would be rolling out policies to trample upon liberty of conscience, freedom of speech. Listen, this is Michelle Bachmann, Congresswoman.
But they also talk about how they have committees to stop anybody from talking about this. And it's really shocking when you think the mainstream media hasn't talked about this, the cable media hasn't, the social media hasn't been talking about this, and yet through alternative media sources like yourselves, really more than half of the people don't trust the system. They know something about this just through alternative media. That's why the global amendments and the pandemic treaty envision shutting down even alternative media. Everyone has to be in compliance with the message given out by global government. And that will be within the year that they'll start on these restrictions on speech. And so that's why use our speech as long as we can.
As long as we can. My friends, we're told the warnings that worldly conformity has silenced or withheld must be given under the fearful opposition from enemies of our faith. It is now. And notice, he mentioned freedom of speech, he mentioned those speeches are a threat to our democracy. Here he is again. Listen.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action.
Your threat. Friends, write down these two scriptures. Luke 23, verse number 1 through verse 3. They labeled Christ's speech as a threat to their democracy or as a threat to their nation. By the way, this is a republic. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Let's move on here, friends. And then John chapter 11, verse 47 through verse 53. They planned and signed the law to crucify Jesus, to put him to death. Why? They feared his speech. They feared his movements. It would destroy their nation. That's what they thought. And thirdly, I'll give you a bonus. Acts 24 and verse number 5. How did they view Paul? That's how they will view us. Here it is, my friend. Contextually, he's talking about climate change. Listen again.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation
Science.
and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action.
Yeah, science, climate change. And what is going to be their chief policy to combat climate change? The words, red words. You can have opinions, just not ones the thought police don't like.